Jack Torrance has stalled on his writing and lost another teaching position, desperate for peace. He accepts a winter caretaker job at the remote Overlook Hotel. When he drives up the grand entrance, snow blankets the Rockies, and the lodge appears like a beacon in white vastness. Beside him, Wendy scans the ornate facade, stone walls carved with curling motifs, windows glowing behind frost. Their son, Danny, grips his toy bear and stares at the looming building, eyes wide with a mix of wonder and unease. Inside, a vast lobby greets them in near silence. Marble floors reflect the glow of crystal chandeliers. Velvet armchairs stand empty beside a cold fireplace, and a patterned carpet winds beneath them like a frozen river. Jack completes paperwork at an unattended reception desk, while Wendy and Danny explore branching hallways lined with portraits whose painted eyes seem to follow every step. Their suite holds a four-poster bed, a small fireplace, and a writing desk by a frosted window. Jack sets up an old typewriter, hopeful that solitude will unlock his stalled creativity. Wendy arranges their belongings, noting guest directories filled with glossy descriptions of summer balls and theatrical performances, events long past in this winter hush. Danny's gaze drifts to the shadows at the room's edge, and for a moment he hesitates, sensing something just out of reach. At dinner in the empty dining room, Jack raises a toast to a fresh start. Soft candlelight paints their faces in warm tones. Danny nibbles on soup, scanning a distant corner where a pair of twin girls once appeared according to whispered tales. No one speaks of them directly, but Danny's shining flares in response to the hush. That night, Jack tucks the typewriter aside and joins his family by the fire. Outside, the wind rattles the windows, carrying mountain echoes through hidden vents. Inside, they listen to hush and the promise that their winter at the Overlook will be more than simple caretaker duties. It will test the bonds of family, the limits of sanity, and the power of what hides behind familiar walls. The lobby's hush follows the Torrances down its polished marble floors, where every footstep echoes like a soft drumbeat. Velvet armchairs flank a grand fireplace, now cold and empty, while crystal chandeliers hang from the ceiling, their fractured light casting faint rainbows across the carpet's winding pattern. Jack pauses at the reception desk, no clerk in sight, then steps into a branching corridor lined with oil portraits whose painted eyes seem to track each visitor. Wendy drifts beside him, brushing her fingertips along a tapestry that depicts a hunting scene frozen in mid-leap. She notes how the decor straddles elegance and isolation. Polished brass lamps illuminate empty alcoves, and a lone gramophone sits by a record rack, its horn poised for music no one has played in years. A chess table occupies a quiet corner, the ivory and ebony pieces arranged mid-game as if two unseen opponents stepped away and never returned. Danny wanders ahead, drawn by the subtle shift in air temperature. In one hallway, he stops at a polished doorknob and shivers as a blast of cold air curls around his ankles. A moment later, the warmth of a lamp upends a chill, leaving him uncertain which sensation came first. He pedals his tricycle through archways too narrow for a child his age, the wheels whispering against the patterned rug. At a T-junction, he nearly collides with two twin girls in matching dresses, standing motionless at the far end. Their pale faces hold no expression, and when Danny blinks, they vanish, leaving only the echo of his startled gasp. Jack finds a writing desk awaiting him in the suite, so perfectly arranged it feels staged. He sets his battered typewriter atop a side table by the window and listens to the wind shifting snow against the glass. Wendy opens a guest directory, her finger tracing lines about summer banquets and theatrical evenings, events long past, their glossy descriptions incongruous amid winter solitude. She tucks the booklet under her arm, a small anchor of normalcy in the hotel's uncanny stillness. In the evening, the family gathers in the lobby's lounge, where a single rug covers a patch of frozen parquet. Danny presses his palm to the cold wood and feels a faint vibration, as though the hotel itself is breathing beneath them. Wendy pours hot cocoa from a silver urn. Jack toasts to fresh starts, his words soft against the hush. Yet Danny's eyes dart to shifting shadows under the armchairs, and he clutches his bear tighter. Night falls quickly in these mountain heights. Curtains draw close, lamps dim to their lowest glow, and the corridors fall silent once more. The Overlook's grandeur remains intact, but its comfort rings hollow. Every hallway feels longer than before, every door heavier. The family retreats to their suite, each of them carrying a sliver of unease into sleep. Danny wanders the hushed corridors until he finds the door marked 237. His small hand presses a tarnished brass knob, and a rush of cold air greets him like a whispered warning. He slips inside, leaving the hallway's order quiet behind. The room is cramped, its green walls mottled with age. Frost clings to a narrow balcony beyond a single window, and a lone overhead bulb flickers, sending tremors of light across a floral-patterned duvet. Danny shining flares as he steps forward, his eyes drawn to a vanity mirror above the sink. He glances at his reflection, pale cheeks, wide eyes, then senses movement behind him. He spins around, but the room is empty, heart pounding. He returns the mirror in the glass. Something stirs at the edge of his vision. A gray shape, hair hanging in wet strands, face obscured. Danny's breath catches. He grips his bear tighter and looks down to the sink's porcelain rim, where a thin streak of crimson liquid glimmers like ancient lacquer. He swallows, stomach twisting. On a small table beside the bed, he spots a stub of red crayon left by a previous guest. Without thinking, he lifts it and scrawls a word across the mirror in hesitant letters, Redrum. The reflection grins back at him, but the letters appear backward, an ominous puzzle. Danny feels the room narrow around him, as though the walls themselves lean closer. Footsteps echo down the corridor. Danny rushes to the door and twists the knob, but resists. He pounds on the wood, his small fists leaving dented marks. "Mom! Dad!" he calls, voice tight with panic. The lock clicks and the door swings open. Wendy appears, eyes wide with concern, Danny tumbling into her arms. Jack stands behind her, brow furrowed. He steps into the room and shines a flashlight over the beds, the mirror, the sink. Everything appears normal. Wendy brushes Danny's hair back. "It was just a bad dream," she soothes. Danny peers down. The crayon lies on the carpet, its tip unmarked. The red body liquid is gone, the mirror spotless. Yet in Danny's mind, the backward letters in that pale silhouette remain etched like frost. That evening, the family gathers in their suite. Jack sets aside the day's mail and picks up his typewriter, but his thoughts drift. He glances at Danny, who hugs his bear tightly, eyes distant. Wendy offers hot chocolate, voice gentle, but tension lingers in her hands. Jack nods absently and taps a key, just one, on the typewriter's carriage. The letter T appears, crisp against white paper. He frowns, as if unsettled by his own creation. High above, the wind rattles the Overlook's windows. Inside, the hotel's stillness presses close, carrying the memory of Danny's reflection and the taste of backward warning. In room 237, silence settles once more. Its secrets return to darkness, waiting for the next flicker of shining to stir them to life. Night after night, Jack Torrance rose before dawn, his sleep frayed by the hotel's hush. He carried his battered typewriter into the suite's sitting area, setting it on a small table beside the frosted window. The early light painted the room in pale blue, and Jack breathed deeply, determined to transform this isolation into creative fuel. At first, his pages held promise. Tentative prose, the budding threads of a novel. He paused between keystrokes, reading each sentence aloud in a low voice, as if testing its weight. By midday, however, the tone shifted. Where once he sketched characters and settings, now the typewriter spat out a single line in relentless repetition. Jack's forehead creased as he scanned a fresh page, row after row of uppercase letters. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. He shoved the sheet into a growing stack, but when he returned later, another identical page lay on the table. He frowned, pressing the platen to eject it, and stared at the blank ribbon for a moment before loading fresh paper. By the end of the day, his desk, the chairs, and even the floor were buried beneath these pages. Wendy's polite inquiries about his progress went unanswered. Jack's replies were tangled and hollow. Wendy Torrance encountered the first avalanche of sheets as she entered the suite to straighten mugs and dust the mantle. She paused at the doorway, her view blocked by a mountain of paper that reached nearly to her waist. She knelt, picking up a page and running her finger along the typed letters. Her lips parted in shock. "Jack," she whispered, voice trembling. He sat at the typewriter, shoulders slumped, fingers idle midair. He looked up, eyes unfocused. "I can't stop," he admitted, as though surprised by his own admission. Danny watched from the hallway, clutching his bear, his shining prickle at the edge of his vision. The pages seemed to sway like a tide, the ivory sheets rippling under the lamplight. He stepped closer, stepping on a loose page that crackled beneath his foot. Jack's head snapped up. "Danny, go back," he said, voice too soft for alarm. Danny obeyed, retreating into the corridor's patterned shadows, heart fluttering with a mix of fear and wonder. Wendy gathered the scattered sheets in her arms and carried them to the trash bin. But no sooner had she left the room than she heard the rasp of paper sliding across the floor again. Returning, she found the bin overflowing, the pages strewn once more. She bit her lip, exchanging a worried glance with the blinking typewriter. "This isn't right," she murmured. Fun fact number 1. To keep the endless avalanche of all work in a no-play, pages coming without delay, Kubrick's prop department prepared hundreds of pre-typed sheets in advance. This allowed the crew to stage fresh pages instantly, enabling Stanley Kubrick to film multiple angles of Jack's obsession in marathon takes without waiting for ink to dry. That evening, Wendy tried a different approach. She carried the entire stack down to the grand lobby, dumping the sheets beside the reception desk as though making a statement. The receptionist bell sat untouched. No clerk would ring it in winter, yet Wendy imagined an answer echoing from the empty corridors. Carrying her unease, she returned to the suite, only to find the typewriter's table bare and the pages returned overnight, arranged neatly in 2 piles by the window. Jack's face was drawn when he emerged. He ran a hand through his hair, as though shaking off a dream. "New inspiration," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "I might write something different tonight." But as dusk fell, he was back at the same table, the same key clacking in hypnotic rhythm. Danny's shining flared in response, drawing him to peer through the suite door. He watched Jack's silhouette bend over the machine, the rhythmic tilt of his shoulders matching the carpet's swirling pattern. It was an unspoken warning, one Danny could neither explain nor ignore. By the end of the week, the Torrance's winter retreat had transformed into a ritual of word and paper. Jack awoke each morning to fresh pages. When he woke to the shiver of unwanted tasks, Danny woke the corridors that seemed to swell with unseen presence. And though the hotel remained silent, its influence spread through every room, every keystroke, every whispered fear. Jack uncovered the last pile of manuscript pages and carried them toward the door, only to find Wendy already gone. She and Danny waited just beyond the threshold, eyes wide. He paused, paper trembling in his hand. Without warning, Jack's agitation snapped. He slammed the pages onto the hallway floor, their soft rustle replaced by the echo of his heavy boots. "I just need peace," he muttered. "I have to finish." Wendy stepped forward, voice steady but urgent. "Jack, please." He spun, hands clenching around the axe he'd picked up from the storage closet. The metal gleamed with fatal promise. Wendy froze. Danny's small sob caught in his throat. Jack's lips parted in a harsh breath as he raised the axe above his head. Wendy lunged forward. "Jack, no!" she cried. He brought the weapon down, cleaving the door with a splintering crash, which shards flew, punctuating the corridor's hush. Danny bolted, clutching Wendy's hand as she pulled him away. They raced down the hall, following branching corridors whose lengths seemed to stretch with every frantic heartbeat. Jack's heavy steps thundered behind them, the axe dragging against the carpet with each sway. Portraits lining the walls seemed to recoil at their passage, the painted eyes flickering in the dim light. They burst into grand lobby, its vast openness magnifying the sound of their panic. Wendy pressed Danny against an armchair, whispering urgent plans. He scanned the empty lounges, the silent fireplace, the crystal chandelier that swayed overhead. Ahead, a servant staircase offered a narrow escape. They slipped in, descending sharp, cramped steps into service corridors. The corridors here were narrower, the walls bare concrete, the only illumination from low-watt bulbs. Danny's breath came in ragged puffs as Wendy guided him past storage closets and broom alcoves. Each doorway they passed intensified the sense of being hunted. Behind them, Jack's roar tore through the hotel's hush. Wendy yanked open a utility door, and they tumbled into a pantry lined with cans and cleaning supplies. Danny collapsed against a stack of tins, face drawn. Wendy set him on an overturned bucket. Scanning for another exit, the axe struck the pantry door with a sickening crack, which splintered under the blow. Wendy shielded Danny as another strike shook the walls. She spotted a service elevator at the far end and sprinted for it, Danny's small feet slipping on spilled rice grains. She slammed the call button with a trembling finger. The door slid open. Wendy scooped Danny into her arms, and they pressed inside. The elevator shuddered downward, leaving Jack's furious axe thumps fading above them. A soft ding announced the ground floor. They stumbled out onto the circular driveway, snowflakes drifting around them like frozen embers. Wendy urged Danny toward the tree lean, his small leg propelling him through knee-deep drifts. Behind them, Jack emerged from the service entrance, axe in hand, silhouette framed by the warm glow of the lobby beyond. Wendy and Danny plunged into the dark pines. Their footprints tracked a line into the snowy forest until the hedge maze loomed ahead, a twisted tangle of frosted greenery. Wendy hesitated only a moment, then plunged in after Danny, her skirt catching on low branches. Jack's cry echoed between the hedges. Wendy pressed Danny to her side, weaving through narrow alleys. Each turn seemed familiar, but always wrong, the paths shifting beneath the moonlight. Danny stopped at a dead end, eyes wide with terror. Wendy scooped him up again, arms aching from the cold and fear. Somewhere behind them, Jack's footsteps faltered, then resumed in cautious pursuit. Wendy tucked Danny's scarf tight and moved toward a higher hedge where he glimpsed an exit, branches toward her coat. But she pushed through, Danny's small face pressed against her shoulder. They emerged onto the snow-covered driveway as Jack found the maze's entrance. Wendy set Danny down, and he raced toward the hotel's distant lights. When he called his name, just once before dashing after him, her boots sinking in soft drifts, Danny reached the safety of the open road and turned, breath visible in ragged puffs. Jack stood at the maze's edge, axe lowered, watching them with hollow eyes. In that hush, the Overlook's corridors fell silent once more, its grand halls waiting for the return of heated breath and echoing footsteps. Fun fact number 2. Shelley Duvall's terror during the axe-through-door scene was so convincing because Stanley Kubrick demanded 127 takes, each one capturing a fresh wave of genuine shock and vulnerability. Danny's small hand glowed with an inner light as he led Wendy through the hedge maze's narrowing alleys. Each turn revealed another dead end, the frosted greenery pressing close like silent sentinels. Wendy strained to follow, her boots sinking in snow that muffled their flight. Jack's distant roar cut through the hush, urging them onward. At a jagged intersection, Danny paused, his shining pulse brighter, a soft beacon against the moonlit drifts. He pointed toward a slender gap between towering hedges, too narrow for fear, wide enough for hope. Wendy followed without hesitation, brushing aside icy branches as Danny darted ahead. They emerged onto the circular driveway, the Overlook's facade looming behind them. Danny shining dim to a gentle glow as he reached his father's side, chest heaving. Wendy gathered him in her arms, whispering words of comfort, while Jack stood frozen by the entrance, axe lowered, eyes haunted by what he'd become. For a moment, the three of them stood silent in the swirling snow, family bound by terror and love alike. Then, without a word, Jack turned and walked back inside, his footsteps echoing until they were swallowed by the hotel's cold embrace. Wendy pressed Danny close and led him toward the distant woods, each step soft on fresh drifts as they vanished beneath the pines. Reflective themes. The Overlook is more than a backdrop. It's a mirror of fractured minds. Its endless corridors test wills. Its hushed opulence conceals growing madness. Jack's descent sprang from ambition and isolation, magnified until he became both predator and prisoner. Wendy's courage emerged from that crucible, her protective love a lifeline through shadowed halls. And Danny's shining, both gift and burden, revealed truths others could not face, guiding them toward survival even as it exposed hidden horrors. Isolation amplifies fear. Cut off by snowdrifts and locked gates, the Torrances confront not only the hotel's ghosts, but their own inner turmoil. The Overlook's patterns, carpets like twisting rivers, halls like branching veins, echo the mind's winding passages. In Kubrick's vision, architecture breathes, corridors pulse, and silence speaks. Fun fact number 3. Stanley Kubrick had the hedge maze constructed at Elstree Studios to exacting measurements. Each hedge rose over 12 feet, and the layout was designed to disorient. During filming, he shifted walls between takes to heighten actors' unease, ensuring every corner felt unpredictable, an intentional reflection of the hotel's grip on sanity. Thank you for joining this softly chilling journey through The Shining. If you enjoyed this gentle haunt, subscribe to Slightly Spooky Stories for Sleep and tap the bell to explore more quietly unsettling tales. Next time, we'll step into another classic, one that begins a lonely island and ends with a secret worth silencing.